So number one, toe dip. Give yourself permission to like dip your toe in, to try things out, to be playful with it. Even though I feel like it is unpopular opinion to like just dip your toe in instead of like going all, like choosing one thing and going all in, which I feel like I have heard so many times. Give yourself so much permission and space to just try things out, toe dip, try things on, work through with like a beta test client just to see if this is the thing that you want to do before you invest time, money, energy, everything.
Hello, my loves, and welcome back to Create Your Life. I'm your host, Simone Leah. So I just wanted to let you guys know that today's interview is actually an interview that I recorded about a year ago when I ran an online event called the Soul-Led Entrepreneurs Summit. It was a really, really, really wonderful event. I had some beautiful, amazing speakers talking about things like connecting with your intuition and how you can use that in your business, how to do Facebook advertising, how to do marketing as a soul-led entrepreneur, all of these cool things to do with business, entrepreneurship, and actually also spirituality and connecting within. And so these interviews were so wonderful that I really wanted to be able to share them with you now. So if when you're watching this, you see or hear the word soul-led entrepreneurs, this is still the Create Your Life show, but these interviews were just too good for me to keep to myself any longer. So I really, really, really hope you guys enjoy this interview, and I can't wait to connect with you again soon. Hello and welcome back to Soul-Led Entrepreneurs. My name is Simone and I'll be your host today and every day. Today I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Danielle Uhl, who is a transformational business coach and also a photographer. Now, the reason that I really wanted to connect with and talk to Danielle is because of who she is. So she is a multi-passionate person, an entrepreneur who runs 2 businesses and follows her passions in life. So today's conversation was about creating a business that thrives when you do have multiple passions, which I think is such a great thing because there are so many people who might be doing one thing but have a passion in another. So with Danielle, she's a photographer and she's also a transformational business coach, and she helps people to integrate those things together for them in a way that works, whether that be through one business or 2 businesses or however that looks to them, so that they can still honor the multi-passionate part of themselves in their entrepreneurial life and journey. So we had a wonderful and amazing conversation about what that could even look like, whether that can be one business, whether that needs to be 2 businesses, and how you would set that up. And even energetically, how that can feel. Like, are you running 2 separate businesses? Or are they still just parts of your whole unique you, if that makes sense? So it was a really amazing conversation to hear how you can integrate all the parts of yourself and honor all the parts of yourself and give yourself permission to really be who you are and show up how you want to show up, which was just an amazing thing to hear, because I think a lot of people kind of go, I'm this and this is what I need to stay as. I can't be all the other things because they don't work. It doesn't match. But they can match if you just honor yourself and stay in your own alignment. You can create the entrepreneurial life and journey that you want. So it was a really great conversation. I know you guys will get so much value out of it and out of listening to Danielle. She's got beautiful energy, beautiful things to say, and she's just really an amazing energy and soul to listen to and be around. So yeah, I highly recommend watching this interview if you're multi-passioned like I am, and probably like a lot of us are. So yeah, I really hope you enjoy this interview, guys. And hey guys, welcome back to Soul-Led Entrepreneurs. I'm here with Danielle Uhl. How are you, Danielle?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. And thank you so much for joining us today. The audience is just going to get so much out of this. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me to this. I'm excited to just dive into everything we are going to talk about today.
Yay! So today we are going to be talking about building a business that thrives around being a multi-passioned person, having lots of interests, and how you can incorporate that into your business. But very first off, what does being soul aligned in business mean to you?
I love this so much. This is so much of what I work with my clients with as well, because alignment is such a key piece, especially when it comes to business. One of the things I talk about of how I work with my clients is really taking that person-centered, but like holistic approach to make sure that like literally everything that you're building, especially in your business, is aligned to you, who you are, your personality, and then of course all of your goals, both inside and outside business. I know in like the corporate world, it's very much kind of like this life business balance, or life and work balance. But really, when you have a business, everything is integrated. So life, mindset, business, everything really does need to be aligned and integrated in order to just make it work for you. Make sure that your life and your lifestyle works with the type of business, let alone all of the goals and everything that you're doing. So making sure that you are tapping into what you want, who you are, building that into your business, as well as like your personal goals in and outside of business, to make sure that everything truly does align, because that's when you're going to feel the best about your business and really build something that you want to run, that you want to continue to grow, instead of wanting to like burn it down to the ground because it's not aligned. So that's a huge thing that I really love working with all my clients with. And I love that you're talking about this here on this event.
Yay, thank you. Well, I think like one thing that really relates to this is what happens if you are someone who has all of those multiple passions, which is what we're here to talk about. How can you align that? Do you need multiple businesses, or can you put that all into the same business?
Love this question. Where to start? Really, so here's where I would start. If you are someone who maybe doesn't have a business, or you have a lot of ideas, maybe you have one or two ideas and you've been told to like choose one thing or niche down. That's one of the hardest parts, is just knowing how to get started, especially if you are being told like you just need to choose one thing and kind of putting that pressure on it. One of the things that I see so often that I actually really kind of go against the grain with is, while other people are telling you to choose one thing and niche down and go all in, that's actually one of the worst things you can do while first getting started, because I actually want you to toe dip. I actually want you to like kind of dip your toe in things out, try it on, work with maybe a beta test client initially, just to see if you even like doing the thing. I have had clients before thinking they wanted to go into virtual assistant work, or they wanted to do this other thing, but then they actually tried it, or they started working with their first client and realized how much they hated it. And they just wanted to like kind of burn it all down to the ground. So instead of going all in, and I know very much in my own story how I started to go all in on this one idea for kind of my niche for coaching. I had built the website, done the branding photos, figured out all the messaging, like set everything up, and let alone like paid for everything to be set up initially, and then realized that that quite wasn't the niche that I wanted to do. So it'll save you a lot of time, money, energy, a lot of tears probably, if you're just able to give yourself permission to first like kind of dip your toe in, see what you like, see what you don't, test things out, and then decide to kind of build from there, and really feel into like what does truly light you up, what makes you excited, and what is something that you could potentially monetize, build a business around, because there's definitely a difference just how you approach it and how you think about it when you start to monetize it versus something that you just keep as a hobby, which both are fine. I definitely have hobbies aside from my businesses, things that I monetize, things that I don't, for different reasons, keeping them separate. So that's where I would say to get started is to toe dip, give yourself lots of permission to kind of that space to test things out, let it be messy, don't know what you're going to do yet. And then as you really start to get into, I think this is the thing that I really want to do, cool, then you can go deeper into that. One of the other things that I will say about trying to, like, if you do have a lot of different passions, you may not try to merge them all into one. I have definitely tried that in the past. And same thing with a lot of the clients I've worked with. There's occasionally some things that will work for that, but usually what ends up happening is it just becomes really confusing for what you do or to your audience. So you find that like your marketing, or, you're not getting clients, something's not working, mostly because it's confusing and people don't know exactly what you do. So in order to keep it simple, just knowing what are your passions or ideas that you are excited about. Do they make sense to merge? Do they not? Do they work together? A good question to test this is, who are you speaking to? Like, who is your ideal client for each of these? If they're the same, cool, you might have some similarities. They could work together a little bit. If they're totally different, I use the example of my photography business, my coaching business all the time, because they are very different. And it's okay then to have two different businesses, even though that can feel overwhelming to get started. But then at least you know that you can be really clear in what you do and have two different separate businesses instead of just trying to make it all work, especially when it doesn't. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of like how to get started and really like set you up for success for like being able to thrive with multiple passions, potentially with multiple businesses, so that you can grow from there. I hope that answers some of those questions initially.
It does. I literally love that. And what I also loved as well is when you said like toe dip. To me, that actually feels really playful and expansive, and like you can just experiment and not actually have that pressure around, I've got to make all of this content. Because as you said, you might decide that you have 5 things that you want to talk about, but 3 of those things you might, after 10 hours of talking about them, so however long it takes you to make 10 hours worth of content, whatever your, whatever your thing is, but you might be like, oh, I can't talk about that anymore. Like, I'm
Right.
so over that.
Exactly.
But at the start you were like, that's my thing, I want to talk about that.
Which is totally fine. You just kind of have to like, again, try it out. And I love that. I totally got goosebumps just when you said like playful, because it totally is. It doesn't have to, you don't have to come right out of the gate and like know what you want to do and go in really deep and do all the things and be making, 100K in a month or whatever that I feel like is very glamorized in the online world for sure. But really giving yourself that time and space to play with it, to try it on, and to see if you like it before you, especially before you invest like time, money, energy into really continuing to develop that idea.
Yeah. And also like, even like what you think, obviously we're saying that you might have thought you would do something, and when you toe dip, you realize that's not your thing as well. But you might also find that what you thought was your least strongest strength is actually what's attracting people the most. So it might even be a case of you're bored with that stuff, but it's not even what's attracting people anyway,
Yes,
So
definitely.
so I suppose there is that bridging of the gap of putting out content and finding your way with the things that you're passionate about, but also being aware of what's actually getting the most traction as well, and seeing if that's something that you can pursue.
For sure. That's I I harp on my clients all of the time, but like really beta testing, like you can't do enough of it, especially when you're first getting started, because you do get so much of that feedback, whether it's like, do you actually like this? Do you want to pursue it? Or like once you're in and working with someone, even if it's like for free. I know my first coaching client was totally for free, beta testing client, but it showed me like not only what I loved about it, be able to like pretty much boost my confidence in knowing that I could do that, but also seeing like, well, what questions did she actually have that like I never thought of, or like what is she actually looking for, or what value did she really get from it and was looking for that I could continue to use like in my marketing and talk about, of something that I never may have thought before because I'm on this end of it, right? So it's amazing just the data and feedback that you get from just trying things out, beta testing. Go get a friend or even a family member sometime and just like test it out with them and see what happens.
Yeah, actually do it, like
Exactly.
actually just get out
Sometimes that's
there
the
and,
hardest part.
and do it. Yeah. And see what happens. Because as you said, and I think a lot of people, and I think it's very, like you see it a lot in authors, and they're like, I've been working on my manuscript for 10 years. But at the same time, you could have done 10 books in 10 years, that
Yeah,
there's always going to be this process of refining and growth, but don't let that hold you back from actually starting. I think
for
is, sorry,
sure.
now I'm on a tangent.
That's okay. It's so true though. Like that imposter syndrome is huge. And I know like literally every single one of my clients, including myself,
Yeah.
for sure, like imposter syndrome is huge. And if that's the thing that's keeping you from like even taking that next step toward just like trying it out or anything, it's like, well, what if I suck? What if I don't know what I'm doing? Exactly. That's exactly why you go like beta test this, go do it with someone that you're comfortable with, or at least like know a little bit so that you can like make mistakes and they know like exclusively like, hey, you're my beta tester. Like this is going to be messy. This isn't going to be perfect. Like that's exactly what this is for. That just gives you and them like so much permission that this can be imperfect and you can really grow that confidence and kind of overcome a lot of that imposter syndrome before you like get your first paying client and there's all this pressure on the line.
Yes, exactly. No, I love that. I definitely love that. And then also, like you also touched on like whether to set up one business or two. And I don't know if we can answer this in the same question, but say you have got someone who's already got a business, or you've got someone who's brand new, and there is this other part of themselves that they want to do. Are they better off creating a second business or seeing whether they can integrate the whole thing together? Like, where do you draw the line from one business to the next if you're already in it, or you're like, maybe these could work?
Definitely. I love that. It's sometimes it's easier to, once you're in it, to see like what specifically, what is that idea or what is the next business, especially if you have one started already, it's a little bit easier. If you're kind of starting to from scratch, you can kind of play with like, could it make sense? Could it not? So couple examples to kind of like illustrate this. Again, like I go back to, first of all, like my photography business versus my coaching business, like very separate ideal clients. For example, I specialize in like events and marketing photos for businesses, for photography, and then like solo entrepreneurs, especially like newer business owners just getting started for my coaching business. Those are very different people, very different people, very different spaces. So it made sense to me to not only have like separate businesses, but to create like legally like separate entities to really keep them separate. Obviously that gets way into the weeds, but that's where I definitely drew the line. I've had some clients before too, where say like they've had a coaching business, but then they also have this creative side and they like to do, maybe they were like a graphic designer in the past, or they just really love that type of creative work and they want to design planners and journals or different things like that, like more of a product to sell. While, if there's a certain emphasis or focus or who that for each service, who it's for. So like if coaching, you're working on, maybe you're a health coach, but then these are like more inspiration and they're for business owners or something like that might be separate. But say you're working as a business coach, I'm making some of this up, but you're working as a business coach and then you also create planners and journals. While it might be separate, you might be able to still sell those on, say, Etsy or somewhere where other people would find them. You could also potentially recommend them to your clients or put them up on your website where it might make sense to kind of have as a different arm of your business, if you will. So I like to think of it as kind of trees. This is going to be weird, but go with me. But like, is it a separate tree for different people that you are kind of housing under? Or is it just a separate arm of your business, like of the tree? Is it just a different branch, but still fits under the same tree? I'm very visual, so that kind of helps me. But that way you can decide, like, based on who you're talking to, who you're marketing to, do those align to the same person or not? And that should kind of give you that answer.
I literally love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I do want to ask, because obviously, yeah, as you said, coaching and photography are so different. Do you find that energetically, can it feel overwhelming having to run? Because essentially you'd potentially have two websites and two social medias, or do you run all that under the same thing? And energetically, is that like, how does that work, having the two separate?
I love this. And I'm going to answer this kind of in two parts because I think it's different for how, like at my level right now and how I'm currently running both businesses is very different than like when I first started. So right now, like, yes, I am very much running things separately, but like kind of both simultaneously. I will say, especially having two businesses One of them that is fairly like seasonal, or for both of them, how like you have launches at some points and other times you're just kind of maybe not as actively selling. Versus, and like photography wise, like fall is always my crazy busy season, but then like January, February time is always like super dead, right? So I kind of have different seasons, ebbs and flows, which you may not know if you're first getting started. As you get into it, you're naturally going to have kind of ebbs and flows in your businesses. And I really take advantage of those to work both businesses at the same time and kind of like play off of each other. So this idea of like your businesses never have to be completely equally balanced, or like you're doing the exact same thing for both of them all the time. Instead, like right now is really my busy season for photography. So a lot of my focus is more weighed on photography right now. Whereas as soon as I kind of come out of October, I'm going to be launching a mastermind. So then it like I kind of ebb and flow with each other versus it having to be balanced. So that's one of the ways that really helps me. Of course, there's always days that like you feel overwhelmed about anything. So of course you're still going to experience that. I always tell my clients the goal is not to avoid feeling overwhelmed, but it's really having the tools to get yourself out of overwhelm and feeling better, and using things like that where it's like, you know, your businesses, you know, your own personal tools and self-care to help alleviate some of that overwhelm. So that's where I'm at now. One of the things that I love talking about, especially with clients who are first getting started with their first business and or their second business or adding a second business, is like, how do you even start that? And one of the things I love to talk about, because I always get the question, like, how do I have, you know, all of the social media profiles for both and a website for both and all the things? The answer that I give you is that you don't. You're not supposed to have everything for each business, especially as you're first getting started, even for one business. Keep it simple. So again, going back to like, who are you speaking to? Who is your ideal client? And where can you find them? So when I first started my photography business, like my focus was in-person networking, because I was doing in-person photo shoots. So doing that, really staying like going out and meeting people or getting referrals from past clients. And the first social platform I used was Facebook. So like those were the two key things that I started using. Didn't mean I needed a website yet. Didn't mean that I needed Instagram or TikTok or like all of the other things, especially at the time. It wouldn't make sense. I use this as a reference, but like if I were to market to families for family photos, and that's what I wanted to specialize in, it probably wouldn't make sense for me to be on LinkedIn, right? I'm not going to find my clients there. That's not who I'm targeting. So it doesn't even make sense to have one, let alone like use it, if that's not where your people are, especially when you're first getting started. Like, how can you directly find what platforms or what strategy you can use for your marketing, and then just keep it simple until you can like kind of stack or like grow to the next one, which one would make sense next and then next. But instead of like thinking you need to have all of them or jumping kind of from thing to thing to try everything out, because that doesn't work either. So keep it simple. And then once you do that, ideally, especially for two businesses, you have a strategy for this one. You have one place, maybe it's Facebook that I'm using for this one versus my coaching, which maybe is more Instagram. So then I'm only focused on those instead of doing everything for both. That's actually just keeping me busy, but not actually moving the needle forward. So that's how I really like to explain, like, once you're first getting started, choose kind of like one path that makes sense for who you're targeting. And then you can always add later, of course, like have a website later or grow your social platforms later, but only how it makes sense for how you can keep up with it and how what makes sense for where your people are, for sure.
Amazing. So say someone was starting at the very beginning and they've got 5 passions, and they go out and they have the one platform and they dip their toe into all of those passions, and they do find that the 2 of those passions are just so different. We'll use yours, photography and coaching, right?
Sure.
Would you, like, they've found that they really still want to explore those passions, but they're not merging together on the same platform? Would you suggest that they build one before the other, Or do you think that they could potentially start the two, that they have tested, they do know that they want to do that, but they're just not working together? Could they build those at the same time?
Yes, I'm going to answer kind of two-parted here, just because there's kind of two things I want to say. Well, yes, I think that they, especially for like if you're starting with one maybe social profile for each, just to keep them separate, to start from there, I think it's pretty easy to start it. Maybe, don't be hard on yourself to like, you have to post on each every single day and you have to have new stuff, like don't put too much pressure on that yet. But you can, like, ideally you could start those and kind of like post maybe a couple times a week. Maybe it's just once a week to get started. Where my head really goes initially though, other than getting on social media, is when you're first, especially like if you do have the two ideas that you want to dive more into, the idea is you want to beta test, right? Or if you have done that, how can you talk with the person you beta tested, or find like kind of just network and find the next person that you could work with, right? That it seems very old school, especially with all of the like social platforms we have nowadays. Of course, use social. Highly recommend that. But how can you just like build relationships with real people initially to help get you started? That way, when you are actually using social media and you're getting people to like your page or to follow you or whatever that is, there's going to be more people that actually could be potential customers than just like family and friends who you're like my page, that may not actually help your business. So then you're probably spending a lot of time doing maybe social media content but not actually getting clients. So I am a high I will preach about this all day, but like if you go network or relationship will build with real people, maybe that's a referral from your beta test client. Maybe they can help spread the word to people they know. Maybe you can just talk to your family and friends and say, hey, do you know anyone who needs what I do? That's always going to be your fastest source to actually connect with real people than only using social media. That would be my tip on that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that your main tip is like build connections, build relationships. Like I literally love that that's it, especially like yeah, now that we do have this world where everyone's online and we're in different places and doing these sort of recordings, it's nice to hear someone say, just go out and meet people.
Yeah.
Go out and have a conversation.
Absolutely. Social media is a great tool. And like, I love that, like, we can find each other online, even though we're in different countries and things like that. And if you're not like looking for something in particular, that can just take a lot of time. So yes, it can be useful. Of course, you're going to connect with more people that maybe you never would have through tools like social media. But if you can just like connect kind of one person at a time and like really talk with real people, that's always the thing that has grown both of my businesses, especially the fastest.
I love that. And I feel like it's important just to share a very small story. I do a lot of dancing, salsa dancing, Latin dancing, that sort of thing. And I was listening to an interview with someone who's a 10-time world salsa champion. And he was saying how he gets flown all over the world, no problems. And like people just love all his classes, but in his own city, people don't really utilize him as a resource. And I think that a lot of the time people do just forget, like there's amazing people in your backyard who will like what you do. So just go and talk to them, go and meet them, go and learn from them. If you look up to them, like just, yeah, there's connecting with the people in your own backyard it's an amazing opportunity for everyone involved.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. And
Yeah.
it's so true because like word of mouth or referrals, especially like when you work with someone, they can refer you to their friend or to their, business person that they've also connected with. Like that's free marketing. That's always going to be the best. That's always working for you, even when you don't know it. So I love that. That's been a big source for my businesses for the last 8 years plus.
Oh, I literally love it. And yeah, also it speaks to like getting around like-minded people. They're in your backyard. Just get around them.
Go and find them.
Yeah. So what about if someone is already in a business and they're feeling like there is something that's calling them, like they're not 100% aligned, and they do want to like do a little bit of a pivot. Um, do you think that it's possible that they can just start to phase out some parts and bring in other parts?
Yes. So are you, just to verify this a little bit, are you talking about like the same business, maybe wanting to like shift or pivot within that same business, or like jump to a whole different business, or what exactly
Yeah,
were
so
you asking
like
about?
say someone, for example, has been a business coach, and then they've decided that they really want to just pivot to, what's a different audience? Ooh. I
The
don't know, maybe like,
practitioner.
yeah, to creatives or something like that. And they want to go from working with really, business like clients straight over to the creatives who are, they are a different market, but there's still that same element of coaching in there, but it is a different market. Can you kind of align yourself that way in that same business, but, with a transition?
Totally. The biggest, I have definitely done that in the past too, just with like kind of who I've targeted, both in photography and coaching for sure. Because I always like to say, like, you evolve and your business is going to evolve, right? So like what you like today, it is going to change just based on like the person you become and what you want to focus on. I've seen this so often. And one of the things that I would say, especially if you're thinking about like, I would like to pivot, or I'd like to do something different, or even I'd like to like test out kind of a different service. Yes, absolutely. Please do that. One of the things I would say is to, instead of kind of like starting a business and like going in all in and then deciding it's not what you like, I always go back, like, how can you like, again, beta test kind of with either your current clients or with somebody maybe you worked with before. That's a huge thing that I love to do with past clients, especially my private clients that I've worked with before. Anytime I want to test out something new, I always go back to them and I'm like, hey, are you interested in this? If they are, great. If they're not, that's totally fine. But they kind of always get first choice. That way I have someone that like, we're both comfortable with each other. We've already worked with each other. I can kind of test this new idea with them. So they get the value for free or like super, super low cost, just to be my guinea pig. But then you can kind of do a lot of that behind the scenes and decide, do you like this? Do you really want to shift this way? How could you do it? Get, again, a lot of that feedback and data before you actually go and do it. So instead of saying like, okay, I'm a business coach and now I want to focus on health or spirituality or creatives or whatever it is, instead of just saying, okay, tomorrow I'm shifting, I'm changing everything, all the messaging, my website, social profiles, everything is changing, because that is going to, you are definitely going to see like a drop in business and it's going to take some time to rebuild back up, to just kind of drastically change like that. Instead, how can you kind of do it behind the scenes and build it up gradually, so that kind of one, how would this work? One can kind of fade down while the other one grows, so that you don't just have a dip in business, especially if you're freaked out with like finances and income and, oh my gosh, now all of a sudden I have 0 clients because I changed all of this, which I've totally done before. So learning the hard way. But yeah, how can you kind of do that behind the scenes first and build up to it, do it gradually before you make that full transition?
Yeah. Amazing. That's such good, like, just, yeah, good advice. And again, I love that you keep coming back to this idea of testing things out,
Totally. You'll hear me say that lots.
Yeah. I think that's amazing, because I think a lot of the time we do like pin everything on a, let's just do this on this day and see what happens, whereas
Mm.
it's nice to get that real feedback before you've even started, that you can tweak little things, and yeah, again, for authors, they have like, better testers and better readers and stuff like that who read the books before the book's even published. And I think a lot of the times in business, we don't think to necessarily have someone check it out first and see what they think, get that.
Totally. And that can be so fun too, because I'm sure like, readers, like if I had the inside scoop, or like I got to read it before anyone else did, like that's such a benefit to that person. That would be so fun to like receive. And I know that, like I talked about my private clients, how I'm always like, do you want to test drive this for me? Are you interested in this? They love that. They're getting extra value. They're getting so much extra, especially if it's like free or low cost. They get all those benefits. So it's actually really exciting to them. It's not like, hey, I have to figure this out and have it perfect right away. And if I don't, then it's bad or it's wrong. It's like, no, actually, like a lot of those people are all your beta testers. They're going to love that. And I think that that's the hard thing to remember, especially if you've never quite gotten to that point yet before.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I do want to ask a quick question on being, it's going to sound really weird when I say it, and I probably don't mean it the way it's going to come out, but
Okay.
being authentic in terms of your marketing, but having those two businesses. So what I'm kind of getting at there is like, obviously you don't want to be like, this is me, but this is also me, like, but you know what I mean? Like you want to kind of be aligned. So would that kind of mean you have like your own social media profiles and all of that sort of stuff, and website and all of that sort of stuff that is kind of about you, but links to the other things? So say, for example, you've got, say, Facebook. You've got Facebook for yourself, and that links to everything that you do. And there's personal content on there, there's business content on there. You're just sharing everything. But then you've got the business brand for the coaching, and then you've got the business brand for the photography. And the three do link so that people aren't like, oh, wow, she's a photographer as well. Or do you find that in staying soul aligned, there is a connection between everything, or are they still quite separate?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, yes and no.
Okay.
So I will say, so for my example, my photography business, I have really built so it's called Underexposed. So like I've really built the brand under that name. So like, well, yeah, like if you work with me, you're gonna see me, right? Like I am your photographer. Um, I my brand is really around like the company, around that name. Versus like coaching, it is my name, right? Like it is Danielle Uhl Coaching, like Danielle Uhl LLC. So that's more of a personal brand. So there's definitely more of me and like my own picture showing up, my own story, because that's what I do and that's who I'm attracting. And yes, like you were asking, I do have like a personal Facebook page that I will kind of post a little bit of everything. But one of the things that does help with that, that I didn't really do initially, and obviously I do this all the time now because I help other multi-passionates, but really just being super vocal and comfortable about, yeah, I do run multiple businesses and like you're going to see a mix. And yes, I do both. And it's okay if you ask me questions, or it's okay if you get confused and need to like ask me about things or get clarification or like whatever. But being like owning your power in that, first of all, and saying like, I do have multiple passions and I am going to do them. And here's how it's going to kind of look. I feel like that's maybe one of the first steps and just like owning your power in that, instead of maybe like hiding behind the brands of each of your businesses or what you do. While I think branding and logos and business names and stuff like that can be helpful, especially to separate them, just making it known, especially for you personally, just owning your power that like both of them, yes, are you, and that you do have multiple passions, that you are doing multiple things, and that's okay. And that's what you love. I think that's one of the biggest things to almost to get people, even if it's just friends and family, to kind of buy into that. Instead of, I know what multi-passionates get labeled as a lot is being flaky or on to the next flavor of the month or whatever kind of comes up in conversation, but really like committing to like, no, it's okay that I like to do multiple things and I'm going to do it. That's what makes me happy. So owning that first, and then finding ways to like, yes, be who you are in each of your businesses, instead of feeling like you need to be somebody else in order to be that photographer or in order to be that coach. And they're two separate people. I know a lot of my clients actually feel a lot of that when they have like a corporate day job, but then they're starting a business. I've actually had a handful of clients who have like a super analytical day job where they're like they're in like math or science or finance or something like that, that's like super analytical and logical. And then they want to like do this crafting business or like something super creative, which I am all about, but it's almost like they're wearing, like they're two different personalities. So ideally, like just knowing yourself, kind of coming back to you and who you are and being able to be you no matter what you're doing, I think is going to be the most important. And then just owning your power in it's okay to have both. It's okay to do both things.
I love that. I love it. For everyone who's listening, you just got permission to be you all the time.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, so much permission.
Yeah, I literally love that because, like you said, I feel like there's so many times where people are like, I can't talk about that business when I'm doing the other business, or I can't talk about that because of this. And I love that you're just like, no, like own it all, just own all the parts, all the things, you know?
Exactly. It took me a long time to get there too.
Yeah.
But it's okay, like allowing yourself to do that, giving yourself permission, and then just feeling into like how can you be a photographer and have your day job or and be a mom or and be a coach or like all the things, all the roles that you play, it's still you. And how can you infuse you and your personality and what you want into all of those, even if it feels uncomfortable at first because you feel like you need to be a certain person or you need to look a certain way or look professional. Lots of mindset work to do, but
Yeah.
you can totally be yourself for any role that you play or anything that you do.
Yeah. No, I literally love that. I really, 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 really do. Because, yeah, like I just think that that's such an amazing place to come from. And obviously, on the business sense, yeah, there does need to be that understanding that they are two different markets, but that's totally fine as well. You can still be you, knowing the actual ins and outs of both of those businesses. And like you said, just feeling into how that's all going to work together. And then also doing the work, as you said, on the mindset stuff that's coming up. So what would someone do if they are feeling any sort of resistance?
Yes, so many things. No, it's totally one of my favorite things to work with clients, because usually that's a huge piece of what holds us back, or why you're not taking action, why you're procrastinating, why you have jumped from thing to thing, like why you're not where you want to be is usually 9 times out of 10 because of some mindset behind it. And while I have done a lengthy years of learning my own and still continuing to work through lots of patterns and beliefs and traumas and so many things, biggest thing is don't be afraid to dive into that. There is going to be so much, especially when you're running your own business, your personal life, all of your beliefs, fears, experiences, like I mentioned, traumas, different things that you've experienced are going to come into your business in some way, shape, or form, because you're making decisions, you're putting yourself out there, you're doing things you've never done before. All of that's going to bubble to the surface. So instead of like, I always like to think of the idea of like pushing down a beach ball in a pool, instead of just pushing it down and saying like, oh, I'll deal with that later, this isn't relevant, it's just going to come flying back up in your face. So don't be afraid to like really question every thought that's coming to your mind. I think that's, especially if you don't have a coach or if you're not working with someone on your mindset and you don't know exactly what that is or how to do it, the biggest thing I can say is like anytime you have like a worry, a fear, you feel yourself procrastinating, you feel yourself resisting something, question it. Get out a journal, piece of paper, write down like the honest truth of like what is coming to your brain right now. What's the question or fear or worry, or what's the worst thing that you think is going to happen? Whatever that truth is for you, write it down and question it. Why do you feel that way? Is this going to be the actual worst thing that happens? What if that actually does happen? Then what? Like, so what? So what if that happens? Write it out, write through it, and like really don't be afraid to dive in to what is underneath there. Because usually what I see is when we have a fear come up, we just stop at that fear. It's like, well, I'm afraid this is going to happen. Okay, well, what if it does? Oh, I haven't thought that far. Like that has been said so many times on calls, including myself. Like we usually, our brains don't think through. Our brain's job is to like protect us. So if there is a potential threat or something that you can worry or be afraid about of something potentially happening or going wrong, your brain is going to be like, nope, pump the brakes. Like, let's just stop because that's my job, is to protect you. So question everything and work all the way through it. Ask those questions. So what if it happens? Then what? What would you do then? Kind of write all through it. That way you can see like, oh, this isn't actually that bad, or like, I'm just going to try it and see what happens then. But that'll help you move forward, even if you're not working with someone to kind of help recognize your patterns or different things that how you might be getting in your own way.
Oh, I love that too. I literally love that. And I think, again, it's so relevant to creatives who do sometimes tend to get that little bit more resistance, multi-passionate, I mean, more, because they do, they do tend to get that resistance because they're like, I don't know if I can do both at the same time, or I don't know if I can 100% be myself. So I think that tip for everyone, just grab your journal. I think that is like, that's amazing. So if you did have to give 3 tips to someone who is multi-passionate, what would they be?
Yes. Well, I feel like I already touched on 2, but I'm going to go back. So number 1, toe dip. Give yourself permission to like dip your toe in, to try things out, to be playful with it. Even though I feel like it is unpopular opinion to like just dip your toe in instead of like going all, like choosing one thing and going all in, which I feel like I have heard so many times. Give yourself so much permission and space to just try things out, toe dip, try things on, work through with like a beta test client just to see if this is the thing that you want to do before you invest time, money, energy, everything into going even deeper, and then want to probably burn it all down to the ground eventually. Number 2, what we just talked about, like do the mindset work. Whether you are, I highly recommend obviously being a coach and also like having worked with multiple coaches, including my current coach, like you just, I always say like you're too close to see your own shit, really. Like you're just too close to see what your patterns are or the bigger picture. Sometimes you're focused on the fear when in reality, like this is a pattern, this has happened multiple times, but so many times you can't see that for yourself. And I myself am included. Even though I coach my clients on this stuff all the time, I can't see my own stuff because I'm just too close to it. So highly recommend, especially for mindset work, like working with a coach to help you move through that. And also just to have kind of that, not that you need validation or anything like that. It does help. It's helpful to have support, a space, like a facilitated space, someone listening. And sometimes it does help to have that validation. I'm like, perfect, go do this thing, right? Like it's good encouragement to kind of help you move forward. So I highly recommend working with a coach, but in general, do your mindset work because that's probably the thing that's holding you back either right now or has in the past or definitely will in the future because those things come up again and again. And number 3, always feel into what you personally want, whether that means you might have to have like a hard conversation with someone that may feel uncomfortable, especially if you have like people pleasing tendencies or caretaking tendencies. It's okay to tell people no. It's okay to disappoint people, which I know is so uncomfortable, especially depending on your past experiences and traumas and different things that you've been through. That can feel really hard and uncomfortable, but it's always with that alignment with everything we're talking about, being soul aligned, like feeling into what you truly want and then doing the thing to do that for yourself, give that to yourself is always going to, like, I see this with my clients all the time. Like once they get into alignment and they actually like make those hard decisions or do things that are really uncomfortable in order to give themselves what they want, like other things just fall into place. Other things just happen. It's amazing what opportunities can come up or just like what happens that like you could have never imagined. But if you do that, you will always be in alignment. And even though there's some discomfort in between, it always turns out for the best.
It's amazing what happens. Like, as you said, when you are in that alignment, things just flow in. It's everything 100%. Just feels so much more effortless.
It does. Even though it's like hard initially to get there, it always pays off so beautifully.
Yeah. And I think that's important as well. Is like, it's not when you're getting into an alignment state, it's not this lifelong process of hardship. It's just
Yeah.
a little bit of like, oh, this is an adjustment. And then everything just starts to flow as you go. Like it might feel a little bit uncomfortable for a little while, but then it just starts to, everything opens up, and becomes expansive. So yeah, I
Little
think.
speed bumps.
Yeah, exactly. And it's never as hard as you even feel like it's going to be. I feel like people perceive things to be so much harder than they actually are when they're actually doing them.
Oh my gosh, all the time. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, that was so easy. Like, why did I even like procrastinate, worry about that for weeks
Yeah.
on end or whatever it was? Like, just go and do the thing. It's probably easier than you're making it out to be.
Yes. And you know what? This is a bad example, but it even comes up with vacuuming the house. And it's like, it's going to be such a pain to
Oh,
vacuum the house.
true.
And then you go, wait, it's 15 minutes. Like that's literally, and then the house is clean for days or, however long. And it's like, you put so much into this. This is going to be hard, but it's so not just, anyway, sorry, a little bit of a tangent there.
I feel the same way about laundry. So I totally understand.
Yeah, exactly. So I think everything, there's everything in life has that element, whether it's business or personal or whatever. But if you just lean in, it's never going to be what you're actually thinking it's going to be.
Definitely.
Now, would you have a top resource you would recommend to someone on this journey?
Yes, I have. So I wanted to recommend one of my favorite books that I've read that I feel like is just so on topic with being super aligned and like making some of those hard decisions and going after like what is just so true for yourself, even if that, like I kind of was just saying, like even if that makes other people feel uncomfortable or disappoints other people. The book, so basically anything by the author, Tama J. Peeves, I love her to pieces. She's amazing. She has a lot of great books, but her one book in particular is called This Time I Dance. And it's all about her personal journey from going from like pretty like high end, like almost making partner lawyer to taking the leap from that completely and becoming a writer, which is what she wanted to do. And it just gives me the feels every time because it's just like such a beautiful, like very hard story, but so great. And like how she took that leap and truly aligned to what she wanted and just how different and how beautiful just she is and what she does today. Like I love her books. That one in particular helped me on my journey. And also just in general, like listening to other people's stories, whether that's on podcasts or reading other books, or whatever it is, like just to help give you confidence or inspiration on your own journey, like listening to what other people have experienced and how they decided to go after what they want, can be so inspiring to just get you into that and like take action. So I highly recommend basically listening to anyone's story, but that book was one of my favorites for sure.
No, I love that. Thank you so much. I really, really love that. And I think it's great that you mentioned a book as well, because books are just priceless. I think they're just
Totally.
such a great resource. So thank you so much for that. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so my website is probably the best place where you can find basically anything and everything. So it's just my name, danielleuhl.com. I will say on there you can find my podcast, which I highly recommend. I share lots more tips about being multi-passionate, about running businesses, even like some life updates. I do some interviews with other people as well. It's a good mix for multi-passionates and entrepreneurs to help you grow your business and focused on life, mindset, and business integration, like I talk about. So highly recommend the podcast, as some free resources, as well as some of the other resources that are right on my website.
Yay, amazing. And people can find you on Facebook and Instagram as well if they want to.
Yep, definitely. And they're all linked. That's why I say like website's best
Beautiful.
place. There, everything's linked there. So go follow me on Instagram, Facebook. I do have a LinkedIn, but I'm not quite as active on there. And then my podcast is definitely one of the best places to just get some extra tips and resources and everything as well.
That is amazing. Guys, you've got to go check out Danielle. Obviously, as you can see, she's got beautiful energy and so much to share. So make sure you are following her somewhere. I don't care if it's Instagram, I don't care if it's her podcast, but just jump on and follow her, because honestly, you will learn something. Just, it's amazing just talking to you and being around your energy and feeling that passion that you have for your life. And yeah, just what's showing up for you and being able to help people. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I love this conversation so much. I love just talking about alignment and just making yourself happy. Like, do what you want, go after what you want. I'm all about that. So I love this event that you're putting on and just your energy right back at you. I love it so much.